Hey, and welcome to the How to Talk to Girls podcast. This is your host, Trip Kramer from tripadvice.com. And on today's episode, we are doing an interview with Myke Macapinlac. And Myke is a friend of mine. He's a confidence and social coach, and he helps guys in terms of being more social with women and men in general. And he's talking today about how to be an immigrant in America. So if you are a foreigner here in America, or if you're a foreigner in any other country, he goes over some great tips in order how to socialize and meet girls who are in your country that you're living in, even if you're not a actual citizen of that country, so to speak, or you're from that country. And what's really cool here is he's an immigrant himself, right? He's Asian, but he lives in Canada, and he works with guys all over the world who are also immigrants. And another thing, too, is if you're listening to this and you're not an immigrant, well, don't worry, because you can actually get a lot of great information and a lot of great tips from this either way, because he's just teaching some really powerful tips on how to socialize, whether you are an immigrant or not. So pay attention. Now, really quickly, I just want to say in terms of updates here is that if you haven't checked out one of my new free programs, it's 100% free. It is the 7 Deadly Text Messages She Can't Resist. Well, you better go check that out. That's at tripadvice.com/text-girls. Again, tripadvice.com/text-girls. You should absolutely get that as soon as you can. It's free. Just go and enter your email address and your name in the boxes in that website address that I just gave you, and you'll end up getting an email. You'll be on my newsletter, by the way, which is awesome because I send out free tips every single day for the first couple weeks, and then after that you get an email every week from me. And what's awesome is you're going to get the text messages that you can just copy and paste, and that can teach you and help you get girls on dates and get them to meet up with you. So it's 7 copy and paste text messages. So go and check that out. That is, again, tripadvice.com/text-girls. I'll put that in the episode info as well, just in case you forget. But go get that. I've had that for a little bit now, and I think you guys should go and get it because it's pretty awesome. So go check that out. And as of now, let's get into the interview with Myke and I talking about how to be able to meet women as a foreigner. Hey, Myke, how you doing, man?
What's up, Trip? Glad to be back on the show.
Yes, glad to have you back, and really glad to dig into the topic that we're going to be talking about today because, well, you are an immigrant. So we're talking about, how to manage being an immigrant, being a foreigner in a country where you're either new or maybe you were born here, and that's you. So I feel like you have a lot of great things to say about it.
Yeah, and I think this topic is so relevant because I've worked with a lot. I'm an immigrant myself. I moved to Canada from the Philippines about 16 years ago, and I've worked with a lot of either immigrants or people who are not white, right, and developing their social skills, and they all kind of fall into the same struggles. Like most of them feel like they feel less than compared to other guys because they're not tall, they're not blonde. They're not they don't have blue eyes or whatever. So they feel, like all these insecurities just because they're different.
What's funny about that is it's interesting that you said that. The only reason why we think as a culture that is attractive is because we see it in media.
Totally.
On TV and in movies. You know what I mean? It's like you look back at all the old TV shows. I always reference the TV show that I don't know if anyone remembers this, whoever is listening, with Saved by the Bell. Who was the guy who got all the girls? It was the blonde-haired, sleek, cool guy, and then the curly-haired, nerdy, skinny dude didn't get any girls. And it's like this is just like one of a billion examples that are teaching us what type of look attracts a woman, and it's just so false. That's not how it works at all, because every girl that I know has a different type of attraction level to different types of people. Like I know some girls who are into chubby guys. I know some girls who are into foreign-looking guys, dark-skinned guys. I know some girls who are into muscular dudes. It's like every girl's into something different, so it has nothing to do with that. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself here. But before we get into everything, maybe just a quick background, because I don't, I'm not going to assume that anyone listened to the other podcast that you were on, but maybe you can just tell them a little bit of background of you and how you got into this, so
Yeah.
they can start to trust you and trust your advice.
Sounds good. So yeah, I'm kind of like what I mentioned earlier. I moved to Canada from the Philippines about 16 years ago, and my first few years in a brand new country was a huge struggle because number one, when I moved here, I didn't speak English. Number two, I was massively overweight. I was 5'5", I was 200 pounds, and number three, I had really bad social anxiety. I remember back in high school, I would actually eat my lunch in a bathroom stall because I was so terrified to mingle with the other kids. So, for the longest time, I didn't have anyone. I didn't know how to make friends, and my dating life was non-existent. And then, at some point, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? Like I was just watching too much TV and playing video games too long, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I gotta learn how to take control of this part of my life, or else my life's gonna suck. So I started reading books, and then eventually I hired a coach, and then the company that coached me, they ended up training me to become one of their coaches too. And then since then, I've worked for other prominent dating companies until I left and started mine. So that's kind of like the gist of it.
Very cool. Very cool. I love it. So let's get into today's topic. I know you said you had a list of things that can help out some guys.
Yes.
So again, and correct me if I'm wrong. For the person who's listening, again, this could be for anyone. I'm sure that you have some great advice in here that it's still good for people who are not
Oh yeah.
immigrants. So I just want to say, if you're listening and you're still listening and you are not an immigrant in your own country, then still listen, because there's still good advice here. I think that all my podcast episodes still relate to anyone, even if we're talking about specific stuff such
Hmm.
as this. So, with that being said, today you're going to be talking about what an immigrant can do to be able to attract more women and socialize, whether you are a very new immigrant, right? A new foreigner,
Hmm.
you just moved to a new country for the first time, or you are someone who's lived there your whole life and you're dealing with the fact that you are not of the native culture, right? So
Hmm.
we'll be going into that. So Myke, take it away.
Totally. And one last thing, like this can be just like the advice that I'm gonna give um, could apply to, basically if you're overcoming with any insecurities, right? So in this case, we're just talking about, being different. So yeah, good preface there, Trip.
Cool. Let's
Eh,
rock out.
Let's do it. So tip number one is to pick your role models, right? So when I was, again, like when I got started into this, one of my limiting beliefs was, like people wouldn't want to hang out with me because I'm Asian, like I'm tall, I'm different, right? Like we're nerds, like I'm not the kind of guy to be invited in parties and social events. So I had all those limiting beliefs. And then the reason why this is so important was because when I started looking into it, I started finding, I started asking myself, I'm like, I wonder if there are other Asian men who are also successful socially, right? They're cool, they're badass, like they're like leaders in their groups and whatnot. And after, like doing a bit of research, lo and behold, I did find some local people in my city that were Asian, and they're bartenders, they're like really popular, right? Like they're running their own business, they're public speakers. So I'm like, so I started thinking to myself, wow, like if they can do it, I can do it too. And really, all I had to do was kind of figure out what they were doing, right? Like their mindset, the way they carry themselves, the way they dress. And then I just kind of picked out the things that they were doing, and I started emulating it. And long story short, I ended up getting the same results. So for whether you're brown, you're black, you're Asian, or whatever, the first thing you want to do is make sure you pick the right role models to emulate from. So that's tip number one.
Cool. I like that. I think that that's a good tip really for all across most platforms. You know what I mean? I mean,
Hmm.
I like to do that in business as well. Like I look at people who are successful and see what's working and then emulate that. You know what I mean? I guess that's the idea of standing on the shoulders of giants. So I like that tip. Who is it that's a role model to you? Who's doing the thing that you want? And try to emulate that. And of course, well, let me ask you this, Mike. I feel like that advice is great, but I could hear from somebody, oh, well, I want to be more of me. Like, why can't I just be me? Like, so what would you have to say to something like that?
I say definitely be you, but like I mean, like right now, there's parts of you that are either underdeveloped, right, or you don't know how to leverage that skill. So, say for example, like you're not actually this is like tip number two, right? Which is to develop your other qualities. So I was gonna say, if you're not tall, if you're not classically good looking, does that mean you're doomed, right? Yeah, for social failure? Not necessarily, because there are other traits that you can develop that will make you attractive, right? Like good looking and attractive are two different things, right? Just because like not everyone is born good looking. I sure wasn't. I'm 5'5". I'm not like super handsome, but I've worked out, I'm fit, I'm well dressed, I'm interesting, I've read a lot of books, I've talked to cool people, I know a lot of cool people. And again, like shifting your focus from things that are outside of your control and putting all your energy into things that you can do something about. So again, to answer your question, you can still be you, but just become a better version of you. Does that make sense? Because if you right now is socially awkward, overweight, and poorly dressed, right? Like that's not the real you. That's like the inhibited you. So your goal is to get down to your true core personality and to be able to showcase that in many different social settings with comfort and ease. And that's the whole point of this.
I like what you said there. What stuck out to me was you said underdeveloped. That's a
Mm-hmm.
really, I like that. I always say to guys, yes, you want to be you, but right now you're not yet the best version of you. So I'm going to connect it to what you say. Yeah, exactly. You're underdeveloped. You want to develop those parts that are better. You want to get better. You want to evolve. It's like if
Mm-hmm.
you're a guy who's not naturally really good at socializing, yeah, sure, right now that's not you, right? But you can become that guy. You can grow and change and evolve and develop to be into that, which is only going to uh, make you better at meeting women and getting dates. You know what I mean? So it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to change and become, like I said, that better version of yourself. And that it's funny because that phrase gets tossed around a lot, like, oh, become the better version of you. So now I just kind of described that, and so are you. That means becoming better at some of the skills it takes to attract women, one being, social skills.
Totally. And it's not about being someone you're not, right? Like, if you're into nerdy things, like I am too, like embrace that. Just make sure that you're also developing other parts of your life.
Right, exactly. I love it. What other parts would you say that would be?
I say like again like having an interesting life, so having cool hobbies and experiences. So trying out new things, whether it's just going to a restaurant you've never been to, right? Or if you can't afford traveling right now, just going to a part of your city that you haven't seen yet, or again listening to podcasts like yours, so they can improve their social awareness when it comes to interacting with other people. Reading interesting books and just having cool conversations with people, because that's what makes life interesting, right? What's that saying? Yeah, variety is the spice of life. So a lot of guys come to me and they're like, Mike, like I'm really struggling with like knowing what to talk about. But then I ask them what they do throughout the week, and they go to work, they go home, they watch TV, and they hang out with the same people every single weekend. I mean, it's going to be very hard to be an interesting conversationalist if you're not doing interesting things to begin with, right? So again, social success comes down to taking small risks on a regular basis, so that you've kind of trained your mind to be able to overcome that fear, because meeting someone you is pretty scary, right? Like I don't think that fear ever goes away. You just get better at handling it. So by taking smaller risk and trying new things every single day, you start to train that muscle.
Yes, exactly. Totally agree with that. You and I are on the same page here. All right, cool. Let's keep going.
Totally. So tip number three is to spend time with the right people. So I've noticed this over and over again. A mistake that I see a lot of immigrants do is they hang out way too much with people from the same country as they do, right? So they never get a chance to. I mean, like I get it, like moving to a new place, it's so easy to seek that familiar feeling, right? Like being around people who speak the same language as you, from the same culture. But the thing is, you're not gonna grow if you're not hanging out with people outside of your race, right? Like it's going to be very difficult for you to even like, like lose your accent or like understand the culture if you're not familiarizing yourself with what's around you. So if you want to grow socially, right? Like whether again you're Asian, you're brown, you're black, and you moved into a North American country, right? Like limit the time you spend with other people who are like you, right? And I suggest getting a job that'll force you to talk to more people, right? Like serving, bartending, sales, whatever the case may be. You can volunteer, so you're always like meeting other people. And then lastly, definitely join public speaking classes to help you communicate better. Just put yourself in more situations where you can interact with the locals and people outside of your race. So, like that'll help you slowly integrate yourself into a new environment.
Cool. Yeah, I think absolutely. And again, that is something that's helpful for anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. That's good.
Awesome. And then tip number 4 is to not compare yourself, right? A lot of guys have a feeling of inadequacy, like they don't feel like they're good enough. And it's easy to do that if you keep looking at what other people have as opposed to appreciating what you have. So, like what I said, like you came into this country with a specific set of life experiences, right? There's richness in your culture, whether it's, food, the language, in my case, because I'm Filipino, like we have, we're known to be a very, very hospitable people, right? Like we have good family values. So like, lead with what makes you different as opposed to comparing yourself to other people, right? Like what you're dealt with a different set of cards and they're dealt with a different set of cards. So mind your own business, stay in your own lane and, work with what you got instead of comparing yourself to other people.
Wow, and that's something we do all the time, isn't it? And I know what that does. That just slows you down.
Yes.
That's all that does. That slows you down. I mean, when you start comparing yourself to other people, all you're doing is just focusing on other people, and you're not focusing on you, and then you're not moving anywhere. So it's very unproductive, is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like driving with your e-brakes up, right? So yeah, just like again, like you can't do much about your height, your skin color, or like the way your face looks, but like there are parts of you that are good. So make sure you identify, because it's so easy to feel like you have nothing to offer if you've never really taken the time to appreciate what you already have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
So,
And
yeah,
it's a lot of people don't do that as much, appreciate what they have, because we're looking at other people.
exactly.
Again, I think it's interesting because we have to balance that out with the first tip that you said.
Yes, which is finding the right role models. And again, like going, you touched on this earlier, going to places where your specific values are appreciated, right? Like, I've dated a lot of girls who only date Asian guys, like, and I just do my best to put myself in those social settings as much as I can. Like I don't really go to bars and clubs. It's not my scene. It's not, that's not the environment where I thrive, right? Another thing that I do is, like I'm in good shape and I'm fairly fit, so I put myself in situations where I can display other parts of me, right? And I can showcase my other strengths where some may be lacking. So it's all about leverage.
Yes, exactly. Cool. Let's keep going.
And my last tip is tip number 5 is to cut your losses. So kind of again, like this kind of ties back into what you mentioned earlier. Like you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, right? Like it doesn't happen as often, but like every now and then, I still experience a little bit of prejudice and racism, and typically it's from people who have never left their city, let alone their country, right? Like wherever they're from, they've never traveled, they've never exposed themselves to, another language, another culture, another city. So I can't blame them if they don't understand, like how I look or how I talk or how I do things, right? And that's just the way it is. And it's not, this is not like, this is an opportunity for you to practice compassion and just become a bigger person in this case, because most people are afraid with stuff that they don't understand, and really that's the only thing, that's the only way that they're like they're being racist or prejudiced towards you. It's because they don't understand you, and you know what? That's okay. There are billions of people in this planet, and don't waste energy, don't waste any of your time hanging out with people who don't like you. Put your focus on people who feel the same way about you.
Right, right. I think that's important too. That's important too. So, do you think that out of all these tips, what's one that a guy should focus on first? Because
The
because there's a lot here, and I can imagine a guy just listening and kind of just forgetting all this stuff. So maybe we can give them like a homework assignment or where to begin with all this.
Totally. So again, like the first thing you want to do is really be mindful of who you're emulating, right? So again, like none of these tips are going to work if you actually don't believe that you can do it. So that's why tip number one is to pick your role models. Like I know for me, when I started finding other Asian guys who are like killing it, whether it's in business, in fitness, or in dating, like it gave me hope, right? And really for a lot of guys, that's huge. Like if you have to believe that it's possible for you too, right? Like maybe right now you're a little bit overweight, or like you're not in the best shape of your life, or you're not well dressed, or you're really socially awkward. That's okay, because like who you are now can change, right? But the thing is, you have to believe that you're able to. So that's out of everything that I talked about during this whole conversation, like the mindset stuff has to be the most important part of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything right there.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
easy to go shopping. It's easy to learn social skills. Like all those things are learnable. But again, like if you have self doubt and limiting belief, then you definitely won't even try.
right, exactly, exactly. Well, Mike, I mean, any wrap up thoughts here? Anything you can tell the guys, or maybe you can even also I want you to tell them where they can find you if they do want to get coaching, whether they're an immigrant or non-immigrant.
Yeah, again, success in life really comes down to your ability to create relationships with the right people. And, this goes beyond dating, right? Like if you want to get a promotion at work, you have to improve your social confidence. If you're traveling to a new city and, like you want to have an amazing experience, you have to develop social confidence. And, again, the obvious part here, if you want to learn how to talk to girls, you need to have social confidence. So invest in this part of your life, because there's no amount of like professional success. I know I've worked with a lot of guys, Trip, who make like $250,000 a year. They're in the tech industry, but they can't make friends or talk to a girl, or talk to new people to save their lives, right? And they're so unhappy. So yeah, invest in this part of your life. It's worth it. It's going to make your life a lot more fulfilling, because like money can't buy relationships, right? So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Awesome, very cool. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, where can they find you?
Yeah, check out. For I've got a free cheat sheet. It's five proven steps to help anyone approach and talk to anybody you want to talk to, no matter how shy you are. Just go to socialconfidencemastery.com and you can download that cheat sheet. I've got a podcast too, and Trip's been a guest, so make sure you check that out as well.
Awesome, dude, and thank you for coming on and dropping some knowledge bombs. Really appreciate you being here again. I don't usually have people on here twice, but I really wanted to go over this topic, and I knew that you had some good information for it.
Trip, thanks so much for having me, man, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, bud.
Take care.